Why hello there. This is B.O.X Productions, and welcome to another bonus episode of Path of Exile. In this episode, I will be showing off, most of the dialogue from the Forsaken Masters. Some of this has already been featured in prior episodes, but for the sake of completion, I'll just go ahead and throw it in here too. Thanks for watching.
Your brothers and sisters tend to get a raw deal in the arenas of Oriath. Drugged up fodder for the bloodthirsty masses. Nothing like that going on with Leo Redmane's events, I promise you. So welcome to the ruckus, Marauder. Red's the only colour that matters to me. Speaking of which, stop in from time to time for a chat. I've always got a few events on the go. Exiles do love to bash each other, as if Ray class wasn't enough of a challenge for them. But now and then, I like to streamline things. Make sure the ruckus has a bit of form and grace to it. Time you visit right, and I'll be able to point you in the direction of a right top-notch ruckus. You know, I've a few friends we should think about inviting over. Not your usual rank-and-file exile, all survivalism and vengeance. They're what I'd call your exile's exile. Far more interested in beating the corruption out of each other than in taking on the twisted hordes out there. A sensible coping strategy, if you ask me, and a damn fine philosophy for producing gladiators. Anyway, you just say the word. I'm sure they'll be thrilled to meet you. Eternals would travel from far and wide to see the spectacles of San Arena. The gemling diva Kalissa gave her final performance in there for Emperor Chittus himself. Legend has it, on that same day, the first gemling legionnaire cut through 4 Ezomite warriors in less time than it would have taken Kalissa to sing a single bar. It's seen more artists of war and of culture than any other place in the whole of Ray class. Whatever becomes of this land, I'm going to make damn sure of one thing. San Arena will continue to celebrate the spirit of glory. God knows, we all need a bit of glory in a place like this. Varici's a backstabbing ponce with delusions of grandeur. I had a guts full of his type back in Oriath. Now they're turning up in Ray class. There goes the neighbourhood. I don't mind admitting that Katarina scares me bloody rigid. Can't say I understand her obsession with the deceased, but it's not for me to tell anyone how to run their life, or death for that matter. Tora's a pussycat. Scratch her belly and she's all purrs. Pull her tail and she'll have your eyes out before you can blink. Zana? I respect a woman who knows exactly where things are. Bloody helpful when you lose your keys. Vagan and I go way back. Even faced each other in the arena a few times in our younger days. He's not a bad bloke. It's just that I wish he'd been understanding enough to set up shop in some other part of Ray class. It's not the competition I mind. It's the evening chinwags that get to me. A man likes to get a word in now and then. Never been one to believe in God myself, but damned if I'm going to tell Elrion that. Just in case I'm wrong, you see. A good fighter always knows where the exits are. Haku's a bit on the intense side for my liking. It worries me when a man can't see the funny side of life. Makes him real dangerous.
Looking fierce today, Exile. I like it. You know what makes us the top of the food chain, Kala? Our teeth and claws are blunt, our muscles are slow, we can't fly and we can't swim with a damn either. That's why we invented the bow and the arrow. There's not a single animal in creation that can kill from as far away as we can, making us the ruling predators in this land. Blood apes. Foragers they once were. Same as the ones in Oriath. Nuts, berries, maybe the odd bug for a touch of meat in the diet. Now meat's all they're interested in. Why are they like this? Corruption. Wherever it came from, now it's in everything and changes everything. Turns plant eater into meat eater, prey into hunter. There's not much of a food chain anymore. What you're eating today will happily eat you tomorrow. I don't know why yet, but some creatures are able to soak up more corruption than others, and it twists them in extremely dangerous ways. Some heal scary quick, others can charge through a bonfire without singeing a single hair. The worst will suck the life out of you with the barest touch. There's no rhyme nor reason as to which creatures sport these gifts. It's not passed down from parent to litter, as far as I can tell. Maybe something chooses them. Now there's a frightening bloody thought. I've been doing some digging around, in entrails and animals' brains mostly, and I'm starting to see a pattern. The corruption isn't just warping these animals. I've seen many a freak of nature before. The spawn of inbreeding. Other times the results of crossbreeding that never should have happened. Those sorts of animals can be unusually strong in some ways, incredibly feeble in others. The creatures of Rayclast are far stronger than they should be in every way. Their minds and instincts are hardened with aggression. Their bodies have twisted in very specific ways, and for a common purpose that can be seen in all the species I've dissected: to kill. There's nothing haphazard in what these creatures have become. I see a plan, and where there's a plan, there's always a planner. Not a thought that helps you sleep at night. I think I might be onto something here, and to be honest, it scares me bloody frigid. Nature is a fairly brutal mistress at the best of times. Meat eaters feed on the plant eaters. Plants feed on the carcasses of animals that have rotted and returned to the earth. That's just how survival works. But in Rayclast, survival has turned into something else. Almost every animal exists to kill and feed at a rate that should have made this land barren over the last couple of centuries. Why isn't it? Because every living thing in Rayclast breeds and grows at a rate far beyond what is natural. Animals kill each other at a horrific rate, but there's always more to replace them. And so I think I have an answer. The plan here isn't survival any longer. It's slaughter. Whoever or whatever created this plan, it wants, maybe needs, to have carnage on a massive scale. Why? I wish I knew. But what I do know is that Rayclast's future won't be a pretty one unless this plan is stopped. Varici thinks himself above and beyond the natural order. One of these days I'm going to remind him that he's not. Katerina pares back the skin and looks upon the truth in flesh and bone. If anyone has seen how deep the corruption goes, it's Katerina. A road allows fools to travel from here to there without getting killed. Xana's maps will only encourage those fools to step off the road. The way he moves, the way he gets all sweaty and glowy when he fights. I'd not complain were Vagan to find his way into my den. Elrion seems to think that God is going to save this land. With a little help from us, this land can save its bloody self. Haku's a man who knows how to live, plain and simple.
Tell him Moana, warrior. Karui warrior must die in battle if he is to earn his seat at the table of the ancestors. It has been that way since the dawn of Karui. It will be that way until the dusk. Yet there is more than one way to skin a seal. The spirits you bring me, I return to the battlefield. Armor and spirit bound together in the service of the Father of War, Tukuhama. The ancestors know this, respect this. They welcome a fallen spirit as they welcome the dying man. That is the Karui way. The ancestors possess the knowledge of all Karui. Every man and woman who has followed the way has carved their life's wisdom into the meeting house of the remembered. Yet the ancestors cannot tell me how Kitava's tyranny might end. Only that it will, if we who still can, stand against him. It is in this hope that I choose to live. Hope is my fortress. and from it I wage war against Kitava's slaves. Yet I am but one warrior, one man who chooses to serve the Karui way. Perhaps there will be others. Perhaps even you. The stories of Calm that we were raised on, they are lies. I have read Lavianga's carvings, pored over the remains of Calm's promised kingdom out there on the coast. We were led to believe that Calm was the greatest of our warriors, that he died serving the Karui way. The truth is there for any to see. Kitava, god of corruption, consumed Calm from heart to skin. Calm became the greatest of Kitava's slaves when he abandoned his people to serve himself. It is Kitava who rules this place. His black spirit is everywhere. In the claws that draw our blood, in the minds of those men and women who would eat our flesh. At first I thought it was Calm who led the god of corruption to this land. No, Kitava was already here, and he remains here still. A cannibal, feasting on the corpse of Rayclast. He awaits us all, growing fat in the darkness of Rayclast's blackened heart. We Karui have a responsibility, a debt that we need to repay. Though the signs led me to believe that it was the Eternals who invited Kitava into Rayclast. We Karui had a hand in humanity's downfall here. Had Calm not formed his alliance with High Templar Vol and destroyed Lion Eye as he did, subsequent events may have played out very differently. So we must right the wrongs of our past and wake this land from Kitava's nightmare. Only then will the debt be repaid. An army is needed to win a battle. To win a war, sometimes it takes only a man like Vorichi. A warrior protects life, but it is the huntress who provides it. This land will never prosper without women like Tora. Katarina is Kitava's slave, preparing pretty feasts for a cannibal god. Navigation and conquest are two sides of the same paddle. Every army needs a Zana. There is a fine line between belief and madness. Alrion does not even know where that line is. Whether he clads it in silk or steel, Vagan's heart is still that of a warrior.
Happy to share my hard-earned wisdom with you, Exile. A good fighter can win with a poor weapon, just as a good weapon might save a poor fighter's life. But put a good weapon in a good fighter's hand, that's when the real art happens. I'm not vain enough to call myself an artist. I'm just a guy who puts good weapons in the hands of good fighters. Do you know where the duelist tradition came from, Exile? The Ezemites. Early on, those Western potato munchers worked out that war was a pretty bloody stupid idea, at least for the wholesale slaughter side of it. So they fashioned themselves a tradition of championship. Here's how an Ezemite battle would go. Both sides get dressed up in their fiercest and finest war garb. They'd all prance about, banging drums and flinging curses at each other. Then when everyone was het up enough, a few chosen lads and lasses would step forward and fight it out. To the death, usually. The point of it all? My champions win, and I get to have that fish-filled estuary on my border. Your champions win, and I hand over a few hundred cows. Deal done, and most of us get to go home. The Eternals pinched the idea from the Ezemites, and the Oriathans pinched the idea from the Eternals. I was invited into Doresso's Hall of Swords on my 15th birthday, Oriath's youngest ever initiate. The same age as Doresso was, when he put a rusty dirk through the eye of a seasoned murderer in a back alley pit in Theopolis, his first ever kill. We came from nothing, Doresso and I. My old man was quick with the blade, but even quicker with his coin. I had to earn my respect and my gold the hard way, just like Doresso did. When you've nothing to lose, you have everything to win. It's not about being the fastest or the strongest or the smartest. Duresso was none of those, and neither am I. It's about how many times you thrust that blade, how many times you parry that killing blow. It's about how many times you're willing to bleed and heal and bleed again. In his younger days, Duresso lost more fights than he won. He was never seen without a bandage on his person somewhere. But he never gave up, because he and I both worked out early on that you have to get hit before you learn how not to get hit. Duresso claimed the Crown of Swords one day, and the beautiful Lady Mervale the next, though he soon learned that prizes are easier to earn than they are to keep. I've worn that crown and won myself the mantle of husband 3 times over. Managed to keep the crown longer than most, but those lovely ladies worked out pretty quick that being good at the arena isn't the same as being good at the hearth. So there's one thing I've learned that even the great Duresso never did. You can spend your life learning how to fight, but it doesn't matter a damn if you don't know what you're fighting for. I don't take a man's life in a duel. I earn it. Varici steals lives like he steals everything else. As fine as she is feral. That's Tora. Nice to watch from afar. Up close, I'm not a fan of claw marks on my ass. Sometime soon, I'm going to teach Katerina the definition of rest in peace. Zana needs to stop cataloguing life and start living it. I'd show her the world if I could. Yet I don't think I'm even on her map. Elrion has his battles, and I have mine. Yet we fight for the same god. The Karui have spent centuries perfecting the art of war, and Haku is one of their finest artists.
You want something? Now to even more important matters. The noble science of geomancy. This cunning device has enabled me to alter the gem sockets in a myriad of artifacts. Providing you have sufficient mental fortitude, I might just be able to get you working a little geomancy of your own. Gems represent the one true power here in Rayclast. The Vaal understood this, the Eternals also. Now it is our turn to study and exploit these most precious of stones. Geomancy I have come to call the field, and of one thing I am certain. It is we geomancers who shall inherit this fallen empire, who shall raise this realm to its former glory and beyond. I have much that I might impart to you on the subject, but whether you are worthy of such enlightenment, well, that remains to be seen. Virtue gems are so called because they imbue the mundane sack of humanity with virtues normally reserved for the divine, tenfold when the gem is embedded into flesh and bone rather than a tool of trade. Melding of man and gem. That's a bit of a lost science. The proper fitting of tool with gem, however, that can still be mastered by those few with the intellect to fathom it. The Highgate Mines, that's where the virtue gems originated. At the head of the Grantori Vitalis, the aqueduct that runs north from Sarn to the mountains, I procured a few shipping manifests from the docks. The gems were chipped out of the heart of the mountains and delivered to Sarn by the ton. But from whence do the gems derive their power? Though I'm loath to admit it, even I don't know the answer to that one. Thaumaturgy resides in everything, yet our innate ability to harness it is fairly limited. Yes, there are witches who can work minor miracles and Karui holy men who chatter with spirits and call down the rain. They are but amusements, playing in the shadow of the gem wielder. How best to elucidate this? If thaumaturgy is the blood, then the virtue gem is the heart. It is not how a man lives, but how a man dies that truly matters. Katerina's cadaverous sculptures mock us in what should be our finest moment. Tora thinks almost as poorly as she smells. You cannot start a new world by simply slaughtering the old. Pay no heed to that primitive. Zana's is a mind worthy of intercourse. If only I could pry her from her maps now and then. I have never heard a man waste so many words on saying nothing. Vagan is a linguistic mass murderer, yet put a sword in his hand and he becomes a disturbingly efficient communicator. One of these days I'm going to sheathe my daggers in Elrion's faith-blind eyes. When a man takes on religion, he locks up his mind and throws away the key. When it comes to knowledge and power, we Oriathans have always looked to our dearly departed empire. From what I've learned of Haku, we should have been looking closer to home.
Another day in damnation. Without trees, there is no forest. Without symbols, there is no faith. Back in Oriath, I crafted and blessed trinkets aplenty for the clergy. Pretty baubles for vain men. My symbols meant nothing there. Here, symbols are all that we have, Crusader. No trees, no forest. And so I craft my trinkets and then baptize them in these holy waters. The trick is, as I do so, I envisage how I'd like that particular symbol to be reborn. A blessing of strength to the sinews, a shot of sharpness to the old brain, a touch of good fortune. I make the choice, and God delivers. Vol of Thebros, High Temperer of the Faith, the man chosen by God to lead the glorious Purity Rebellion, blah, blah, bloody blah. He was an idiot, and I was exiled for saying so, loud and often. God gave him intelligence, power, charisma, and tenacity. And what did he do with it all? Devoted it to the stupidest idea in the history of humanity, the destruction of thaumaturgy. Vol thought of himself as Rayclast's savior. He ended up being Rayclast's destroyer. Thaumaturgy isn't a sin, Exile. Vanity is. You know, the Eternal Empire was founded by Crusaders, men and women just like you. God appeared to an Asmerian shepherd boy many hundreds of years ago. He told that boy to lead his people from the mountains of poverty down into the forbidden lands where prosperity awaited the bold. There he was to build upon the bones of the fallen and found a nation of the faithful. That boy was Veruso, the Prima Imperialis, first emperor of the Eternals. I'm going to share a revelation with you, Crusader. The power instilled in my holy trinkets. It's the same as the dark power that lurks within the so-called virtue gems. The same power that feeds and molds the corrupted. Nightmare and thaumaturgy, two sides of the same coin. I know, bit of a dagger in the heart of faith, or so I thought at first. God straightened me out quick enough. Nightmare and thaumaturgy might be two sides of the same coin. But who minted that coin? No, it's not a trick question. God did. God gave us thaumaturgy, a divine gift above all others. It's man who corrupted that gift. Through polished gem and polished lie, Verici earns himself a special place in God's heart. The soul is God's concern. Katerina can do what she likes with the discarded vessel. Our causes may look worlds apart, but Tor and I share a common purpose. Rayclass will be saved. Vagan has a certain attribute that makes him most desirable as a soldier of God. He doesn't waste time on thought. Zana's one of those people that wants existence analysed, written down and filed away all tidy. Nothing spoils a joke worse than when you have to explain the bloody punchline. Haku's a damned heathen who worships trees and ghosts. It never ceases to amaze me how we, God's children, excel at deceiving ourselves.
Speak to me. As my art flourishes, so does my craft. For every draught of corruption that my sculpture imbibes, I too receive a little splash. Enough to enable me to forge ever more exquisite tools of the thaumaturgical trade, tools with which we shall prevail in the dark days to come. The recent dead are utterly mindless. They remain addicted to life, their hunger for it overcoming every other faculty. On the contrary, the ancient dead gradually recover some residue of their former intelligence. Yet both are mere echoes of the true power that is the darkness to come. When flesh and bone, sense and spirit are saturated with darkness, only then can true and pure undeath be experienced. Given time and suitable conditions, the dead walk of their own volition in Rayglast. Why? The cataclysm remains, in soil and stone, water and air. Look closely, and you will see its dark hues, its corrupted radiance. Yet the seeing is the difficult part. It's why we look through the gems. Our petty living eyes are blind, yet these eternal stones, they will show us everything. I do not speak literally of the absence of sun. I speak of a darkness that is home to all that have lived. We were born in darkness. We return to darkness. The warm sable of the womb, the cool pitch of the grave. It is in darkness that creation itself resides, ideas entwining in the recesses of the skull, lovers entwining in the night. The darkness that comes is the death of stagnation and the birth of creativity. The darkness is not a mindless thing like the sea or the air. It is a creature that obeys neither life nor death, a truly undying being, a nightmare. I have listened carefully to the dry whispers of the ancient dead. It was the nightmare that reached out across this land and twisted the eternal empire out of existence. It was the nightmare that brought the same reimagining to the Vaal. The darkness and the cataclysm, one and the same. The dead tells me that this time, the nightmare won't be satisfied with Rayglast. This time, the nightmare wants everything. Mortality is Varici's business. I keep a close eye on that assassin's doings, for he produces only the finest corpses. Tora produces only carcasses, not cadavers. I am an artist. I can't paint with only one color. Zana has walked and recorded paths to the darkness itself. I'd walk those paths too, if she'd let me. Vagan has honed his physique to perfection, but one of these days his mouth is going to get the rest of his lovely body killed. I look forward to that day. Alrion is obsessed with a dream of life after death. The afterlife isn't a dream. It's just like life. You work with it as best you can. The Karui mollycoddle their dead as a precious mother fusses over her children. Haku is no different.
My mother died not long after I was born, and my father, too, was gone only a handful of years later. Orphaned, my family's assets were seized, and I was handed off to a series of well-off foster homes as an indentured servant. But children are curious creatures, and even by those standards, I was extremely curious indeed. I grew up reading everything I could get my hands on, and questioning everything they tried to teach me. I was too smart for my own good, I suppose, because eventually I started drawing the attention of the Templar. Luckily for me, Dominus was much less subtle than the previous High Templars, so I managed to leave Oriath on my own terms mostly, before my impending exile. Good riddance. In all honesty, I thought the gods were just fairy tales the Templars would tell children to keep them in line. I'd have much preferred that. No one is happy about what occurred here, but if a silver lining can be found, we all have the opportunity to start again. All our past deeds, good or bad, now lie beneath the rubble. I, like you, found myself on the shores of Rayclast. I saw the fleets of Oriathan ships dashed on the rocks after Kitava's rise. Who would have thought that Rayclast was safer than home? I returned to Oriath not long after hearing of Kitava's demise. There was no one left to tell us we can't live here anymore, and the knowledge that once endangered me could actually be put to good use in the cleanup and the rebuilding effort. I guess I'm not really one to hold a grudge. I know out here a quick kill solves a lot of problems, but Varici's eagerness is unsettling. Plus he looks at me like I'm another one of his marks. When I utilize my map device, I usually have a pretty good idea of what's on the other side, but I will never know any place the way Tora knows Rayclast. What can I say? I admire Katerina's resourcefulness. I think it's all a bit unnecessary, and how she can bear the smell is beyond me, but I admire it all the same. He's handsome, charming, and a good dancer, and he knows it. Vegan is a piece of work, all right. What Elrion says and what I've seen, well, they just don't add up, do they? Don't bother trying to convince him, though. Debating with him is about as pleasant as a stroll through Sans sewers. Well, let me put it this way. Haku once asked me if I could make the map device's portals wide enough for an army to march through. That's not a road I want to go down. Something I've noticed since I started journeying through these maps is that the more I know about the interconnected nature of these places, the more I seem to get out of each visit. Knowledge is the key that unlocks understanding, and experience unlocks knowledge. My father's writings frequently reference the work of other researchers. In particular, the heretical belief that the environment can influence a creature's form. In Rayclast, we see the effect that corruption has on beasts, humans, even the dead. Through my map device, we see something similar, but possibly even worse. Something disturbed is out there. I used to think perhaps Rayclast's corruption was seeping through into the Atlas. But what if it's the reverse? What if whatever is distorting the maps is... What if it's seeping out here, into our world? That's why this work is so important. These worlds, they have changed since last I remember. They've become darker, more twisted in a way that betrays their true origin. I no longer believe these are realms of chance. Rather, they must have been formulated by a sentient mind, a designer or architect. Every shadow in this place creeps about like an unforeseen purpose. Whatever is out there forming these worlds concerns me. We should find the source of the darkness and put an end to it before something leaks out into our reality. My father was a very well-educated man. He worked as a researcher in Oriath, back when they were allowed to research more than just holy texts. Sadly, he's gone now. But his research remained hidden in our attic. I took what I could and read it in secret as I was moved between foster homes. I read of the mortal founders whose bones were hidden deep in the ossuary. I read of the false saints who continued to be revered in the Temple of Innocence. I read his writings over and over again, memorized them. They were the last connection I had to him. His research became something of an escape, I suppose. I wanted to build on it, especially the maps he described in such great detail. Stay inquisitive.